et panai Havaya Vakesh et panai Havaya Called to my heart, come seek my face, come seek my grace. You called to my heart, come seek my face, come seek grace. Your face, source of all I seek. Your face, source of all I seek. To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die. Death complements birth. They form the bookends of life. Resting between them is a life filled with an abundance of things to see, to feel, to touch, to taste, to understand, to do. There is a time to plant, envisioning a future, and a time to harvest, seeing one's dreams fulfilled. There is a time to kill, weeding a garden, breaking a fall, stopping aggression, completing a task, closing a chapter, and a time to heal, binding a wound, blotting a tear, forgiving a mistake, returning home. There's a time to break down the walls that confine us, setting us free, and a time to build the bridges that connect us, binding us together. There's a time to weep and a time to laugh, and sometimes weeping and laughing arrive as one. When memory can bring joy, distance, sorrow. There's a time to mourn, marching to the solemn beat of a funeral procession, and a time to dance, turning and spinning at a wedding. There is a time to cast away stones, clearing a field for planting, and a time to gather stones together, building a house. This afternoon, covering a grave. There's a time to hold a loved one tightly, never wanting to let go, and a time to release one's embrace, setting one's beloved free. There's a time to seek, looking for answers, chasing a goal, pursuing ambition, and a time to lose, accepting failure, forgiving wrongs, and moving on. There's a time to keep as we build our lives and fill our homes, and a time to cast away, letting go of that which holds us back. There is a time to rend our garments in grief. I now ask the mourners to please take their ribbons of mourning and to tear them vertically up. There's a time to rend, tearing our garments in grief, distancing ourselves from those who seek to diminish us. There's a time of strife because no life is without its struggle, and a time of peace when all is complete, when our days are full, when our story has been told, when we're all together, when the circle is whole. Moment upon temporary moment. This is the teaching of Kohelet, the preacher of the book of Ecclesiastes. Everything is but for a moment. So let us cherish this moment and all the moments we will ever share. And at this sacred, sad, tearful moment, we turn our thoughts to yesterday, to a world that now only lives in our memory. And as we recall the days and the years gone by, we know the past, that's irretrievable. Yet through the gift of memory, we can recapture the moments and images that mark a man's life. We now recall Lawrence Larry Ross, survived by his children, Jay Ross, his wife Renee, and Kenneth Ross, his wife Leticia, his grandchildren Jordan Ross, Rachel Ross, and Ryder Mussi Ross. He was predeceased by his wife Madeline Smuckler Ross and brother Elliot Ross, Zichronam Livracha, of blessed memory. We praise the eternal wellspring of life who links yesterday to tomorrow, and we affirm that despite all the pain and tragedy bound up in life, it is a blessing to be alive. We are grateful and understand there can be no love without loss, no joy without sorrow. May we have the courage to accept the all of life, the love, the loss, the joy, the sorrow, as we remember Larry today. First and foremost, Larry Ross was a loving, caring, and devoted husband, father, and grandfather. He was a man of character and the arts. He was in many ways a classic member of the bridge generation, as his parents had immigrated from Belarus, with Larry growing up in Washington Heights in Upper Manhattan. His father managed New York's Stage Deli. Larry was a gifted violinist, even playing and conducting at Carnegie Hall as a boy. He attended the famed High School of Music and Art, though he went on to graduate from the University of Miami, studying business and communications. He drove snowbird cars back up to New York from Miami, and his summers were spent with family doing audiovisual work. Larry also lifeguarded and loved water skiing, a pleasure he enjoyed his whole life. It was b'shert that Larry liked water, because it was in Miami, of course, at the Fontainebleau Hotel, on the beach, that he met his love, Madeline Smuckler, a young woman from Philadelphia. He was stricken as she was wearing the most beautiful bathing suit. I'm sure that was all he was looking at. That began the romance. Larry went into the Army for a couple of years, making movies at Aberdeen Proving Ground. He drove back and forth to Philadelphia as his relationship with Madeline flourished. And after leaving active duty, Larry stayed on with the Defense and Army departments as a filmmaker at Aberdeen. And he and Madeline married, and they had 2 sons, Jay and Ken. Larry made films for the government for more than 30 years, notably at embassies, the Capitol, the White House, the Pentagon. He has film of Presidents Reagan and Bush, the elder. And as Larry was quite gregarious and outgoing, he also emceed in the Catskills and sold automobiles. But because he used his affable ability to reach out and care for others, he was known affectionately as the mayor of Aberdeen. Larry was something of a storyteller. He simply loved stories and jokes. This is in part what led him to MC. He had the entertainer in him. But personally, he thoroughly cherished cruising with his Madeline, water skiing, and playing tennis. What he did not like was aerobics. That was Madeline's thing, so while she did that, he sat in his chair, unmoved. But Larry's compassionate core revealed itself most fully when Madeline sadly was diagnosed with cancer. He stepped up to be the greatest of caregivers, whether carrying her up the stairs or taking and supporting her at Fox Chase, Johns Hopkins, and elsewhere. And after she passed, Larry eventually came to live at Pacifica Forest Trace in Lauderhill, Florida. He loved it there, and to no one's surprise, became known as the mayor there too. The ladies adored him. He was a popular man to have lunch with. Yet the end came, as it has for so many these past 18 months. But Larry was a man of many accomplishments, his best being the loving family who will keep his memory alive, generation to generation, dor l'dor l'dor. Larry Ross, Zichrono Livracha. May his memory ever be for a blessing.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for coming. Everyone who's watching, if this is working. Well, my dad was an MC, so I'll try to honor him in doing a pretty good job at speaking, but I don't think I could match him. My dad was many things. As I said, he was a loving husband, father, grandfather, and when my mom was ill, he was amazing. One thing that wasn't said is after she passed, he continued to care for his mother-in-law, my grandmom Dutchie, and she adored him like a son. And most people didn't take care of their own the way he took care of his mother-in-law, so that was pretty special. And in my opinion, though, about my dad, as sad as it is to have him leave us now, I want to think of all the good things, and he really was a winner, and he personifies the American dream, coming from humble beginnings, from immigrant parents, and growing up in a one-bedroom apartment with a family of 4 in Washington Heights, the violin at 3, music and art high school, getting a full ride to Miami, and all of his funny stories along the way with that. And making his way up the ranks at APG. He worked really hard and accomplished so much, and he loved it. He was always looking for new projects to do because he loved being a movie maker. And it was even his CB handle, because he also loved road trips, and we'd see my grandparents down in Miami growing up, and it was fun to get on the CB, and my dad had his movie maker hat, and that was his CB handle. So I just have all these wonderful memories with Jay, him and my mom traveling together. So he had it all. He had a wonderful marriage that lasted, a very long time till my mom passed. But we were a family that was loud. Everyone knows who visited, and we bickered a lot. But there was never a night that one of my parents ever left the house and didn't come back for a night. We never stopped talking to each other ever, and also we were always very close. We had disagreements sometimes, but we were always very close and there for each other. And he was always very supportive. Growing up, when I would start to travel, my dad would say, "You need a ride? It could be 4 hours to JFK," if that was where my ticket was, and he was happy to drive me up there and back. He didn't care. He was always happy to be there and support. He was always kind and willing to help people that needed help. He loved to tell his stories, but he was also really taught me it was really good to give compliments and make people feel good but it was real. It was from the heart. And my wife's name is pronounced Leticia. It's difficult for a lot of people to say. She's Brazilian. And my dad had trouble with it, and he wasn't very good with names. So he called her Miss Brazil. So she wanted to be here today, but I needed her to stay back with my son. He's too young, I think, to fly out now. But she loved him very much, and he adored her. And he called her Miss Brazil. And he was so proud, I think more than her, when she became a U.S. citizen. And then her name was not Leticia, it was Miss America. So he did actually learn to say her name pretty well before it was too long. And when Jay and I were kids, he shared his love with water skiing with us and so many wonderful memories together on the bay with friends and family. And when I was in school, he used to attend sporting events, and his booming voice would count down the clock at the end of a wrestling match. So if you couldn't see the clock and you were winning or trying to win, you knew how much time you had. He would count down until the end for us to be winners. And my buddies used to make fun of it a little bit because he was so loud, his voice, that no matter who was screaming, that everyone could hear him. And the coach would actually use him to say what he wanted to say to us so we could hear, because his voice was so strong. And in fact, everyone says he's a character, his voice, and everybody who knew him, we have all these expressions, Larryisms, and he had a great sense of humor about it, because at our dinner table as a family, we used to do impressions of my dad at the dinner table, and he would laugh at them, and it was great. And so now, he used to count it down, and now we've counted his years, and he's lived to past 88, which is, I think, excellent. And he had great years, really good quality, great life, and now, now that he's gone, I think he ended, his time went out, but he ended a winner, because he had it all, and he's still winning. So I'm just hope that I know he's with my mom now, and I'm just proud to be his son. Thanks.
That's awesome. So yeah, I too want to thank you guys all for coming, and then everybody on the Zoom. It really means a lot to us. It would mean a lot to my dad that you're here today and celebrating his life and legacy. I want to say the other day, my good friend, Larry Bruck, really managed to sum up my father's personality in just a few words. He said, my dad had a booming presence and a movie star-like charisma. And if you think about it, I don't think anybody would disagree with that. I mean, he was right on. His personality caused people to gravitate to him either because they loved him, they admired him, or they were just amazed by him. For me, it was all three. Growing up in Harford County, I always got the same reaction when someone learned that Larry Ross was my father. It was never, I think I might have met your dad before. If you met him, you remembered, right? It was simple as that. And so the reaction I usually got was, oh, so you're Larry Ross's son. And then it would always be followed by a huge smile and a quick story about something my father did to either, help them, impress them, or shock the heck out of them. But it would be a real positive thing. And, I quickly learned over the years why my dad earned that moniker, the mayor of Aberdeen. Everybody in town knew him and knew of his accomplishments. Now, if by chance they weren't aware of his accomplishments, rest assured, Big Lauer rectified that situation quick-like. And that's one of his impersonations, quick-like. So I recall my mom was always frustrated when my father would say, stop me if I told you this story before. And after that, poor victim on the other end would say, well, Larry, I think you did tell me this one before. The story just continued. And so my dad had such great stories because he had such a full life with incredible experiences. Many are still being fact-checked today. Most people have but one career in their life, but my father was not like most people. He happened to be the chief of audiovisual for the U.S. Army, who drove around in one of 5 cars at the time since he was a car dealer, got the most beautiful jewelry for my mom since he was a jeweler, took our family water skiing every weekend in the summer since he was a water ski salesman, and helped me buy my first home since he was a landlord. And that was all before he retired. After he retired, he became a pharmaceutical rep, and he didn't know a lick of pharmacology or lick of science, but he became the number one pharmaceutical rep in the nation. Number 2 is my brother. Even with all these responsibilities, he still found the time to be president of our temple. He loved working at our temple. He loved running bingo every Sunday. But most of all, he loved reminding us he was the only temple president who was never bar mitzvahed. He put a lot of time into supporting the temple, but not without reaping some benefits. And as a kid, I recall the most incredible benefit was him having the ability to sit outside the sanctuary during the High Holy Days and collect people's tickets. How the heck did he get to do this, right? He essentially observed all the High Holy Days, but got a free pass to pay hooky from the services. He didn't have to stand up or sit down or read responsively or follow along, none of this. Meanwhile, my brother and my mom and I were stuck inside the sanctuary listening to the longest and the most boring services. No offense, Rabbi, they weren't yours. It was the other rabbi. But my dad was always outside kibitzing with everybody. But the most unfair part of this part was the only time we would see my father during the High Holy Days is when he would enter the sanctuary to fulfill his aliyah, his honor. Ken and I couldn't believe it. Like, we so wanted to earn that honor or aliyah so we could get up there and open the ark and carry the Torah around. But each year, like clockwork, just before the ark doors would open, the outside sanctuary doors would open, and Big Lara would strut right up to the bima. As I got older, I did see the work he did, the gratitude of the people he helped, and I saw how much he did for the temple, and I actually did know that he earned those aliyahs. In the spirit of good deeds, I still recall the day that apartments were being distributed for the soon-to-open Weinberg Terrace Senior Living in Pikesville. And my mother desperately wanted her mom to be able to move down from Philadelphia close to us, and she, should she be fortunate enough to get an apartment there, then her move to Maryland could actually be a reality. And so around 6 p.m. the night before room slots were going to be distributed, my dad drove down to camp out overnight in the parking lot with the intent of getting his mother-in-law that coveted room. And I recall kind of driving from Virginia to Maryland late that night with the intent of surprising my dad and camping out in the parking lot with him. When I arrived, I expected there to be kind of pandemonium, and what I saw inside instead was a neatly organized line of lawn chairs and sleeping bags, over 100 people ready to camp out. And in the front, there was a gentleman speaking into a bullhorn, asking people to check in at the front and single file line, don't disturb the traffic, and et cetera. And I started listening to that voice on the bullhorn a little more. I realized it wasn't Weinberg Terrace staff. It's my dad shouting instructions. I didn't even know my dad had a bullhorn. So now to this day, I'm not sure who put him in charge, or if he just put himself in charge, but I know this for sure. All of those residents or future residents of Weinberg Terrace were grateful for the way my dad organized things. Weinberg Terrace management was grateful for the way he handled things, and my grandmother managed to get the best apartment in that building. We had plenty of laughs at my dad's expense. For example, my dad couldn't understand for the life of him why every Chinese restaurant wanted to charge additional money to substitute white rice for a meal with shrimp fried rice, but that's just the way it was. Or when you have a son dreadfully allergic to grass and not able to do lawn mowing, what do, right? You hire someone to do it, you do it yourself, or you bring a World War II gas mask back from the army base you work at and require your son to wear it so he can continue his chore and get teased mercifully. The point is, while it's fun to joke about my dad, I did learn so much from him. I learned how important a strong work ethic is, whether mowing the lawn with allergies or getting a project completed for the CEO by a particular deadline. I learned to never accept things blindly, whether it's asking that rice be upgraded to shrimp fried rice, or it's our middle unit townhouse asking for us to get the end unit, even though we were told it would be possible to do it. You just ask, and I learned so much from my dad. No matter how quirky he was a great teacher and one of the most reliable individuals I've ever known. But they say you never really know the true quality of someone's character until the road gets rocky. And the road got really rocky for us and our family about 15 years ago when my mom was diagnosed with synovial cancer. And I observed my father help so many people over his life at this point, but I never truly saw such a level of devotion until how much I saw him support my mom during this miserable time. Weekly drives to Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, or Fox Chase in Pennsylvania, or Sloan Kettering in New York. It didn't matter. He was tireless. He was wherever that next drug trial was. My mom was getting on it. And so if he wasn't driving my mom somewhere, if he wasn't caring for her, he was busy 40 minutes away while she was resting, going shopping for my grandmother at Weinberg Terrace, and he would always make it back in time to carry her upstairs at the end of the night because he would get winded. And I gotta tell you, he's a character, but he's an absolutely incredible, compassionate, loving character. He was a wonderful father to me, a great father-in-law to my wife, and an incredible grandfather to our kids. Everybody said Big Larry may have gone 30 minutes out of his way to avoid a $3 toll, but whenever Jordan or Rachel wanted something, he was like, "Let's get it." It was always for others. So you may be gone, but your memory will live on through the incredible and hilarious Big Larry stories that will be told forever. Dad, Jordan, and Rachel are already sharing their own pop-up stories with their friends. I love you, Dad. I miss you dearly. Give Mom a kiss for us. And that's it. You want to say something?
Okay. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone who came out here today and all who are watching online. Pup-Up was a funny, charismatic, and loving grandpa who found a way to brighten my days despite being thousands of miles away. It was the stories and memories I had of Pup-Up that helped me get through hard times. It was his smile that signaled his big blue eyes wide, so they were directly looking at you with the utmost joy, content, and pride. It was his distinct New York voice that could be heard from every alleyway, creating a multitude of echoes. His inability to withhold from the signature Pup-Up dance that accompanied the blaring Sweet Caroline soundtrack, closed eyes to sink into the lyrics, and bobbing head that gives my padre bobblehead a run for his money, shoulders moving side to side in repetition with the melody, and his orchestrating hands to direct the instruments performing in his colorful mind. I would say I'm very similar to Pup-Up. I'm a people watcher. I love to observe various people walking in and out of the cold, goosebump-provoking freezer section at Costco, to the happy couple sitting by the door at the candlelight dinner. I like to interpret their body language, analyze their actions, and understand their movements. Pup-Up loved doing this as well. My grandpa, in fact, has been on the display of my scientific observational study at many points in time. An interesting mind he had. However, I am proud to say I was able to gain the cues to know exactly when my grandpa would act on his people watching. Rather than staying quiet like me, I soon grasped that every subject under his microscope would soon be subject to a rather long conversation of his own life story. The happy couple on their anniversary dinner at Trulia's Italian restaurant would now have a third wheel as they learned about Pup-Up meeting and getting a letter from Ronald Reagan himself. The lady at the airport when Pup-Up picked me up from my first flight by myself would learn that Pup-Up almost fell out of a helicopter while filming a movie. Every story Pup-Up shared came with a picture. He actually had a wallet designated for small pictures if at any moment in time any random stranger was just eager or longing for a story. And every time, he was prepared and proud to share his life. As he would show his pictures to not only random people, but my sister and I, on multiple occasions, I realized something I never thought about before. The words that accompanied the pictures carried pride, passion, and love. He had pictures of my dad and Uncle Kenny in the book, and with those images, he always asked me, "Do you know who these people are?" He would ask this with a strong voice as he smiled down with an intensifying look of admiration. He had their old business cards and showed each and every one as he embraced #ProudFather culture. He showed me pictures of Mum in the bathing suit she was in when they first met. He looked at her with so much love on his face. Though his wallet may have been excessive, it taught me, showed me, and allowed me to see the loving grandpa Pup-Up was and always will be in my heart. My grandpa was many things, one of them being a hoarder. He had trouble getting rid of things or sharing items. On my birthday one year, I got what others may view as a strange gift, but for me, it is held very deeply to my heart. As a swimmer, I did many competitions. My Pup-Up always loved to watch me swim and talk about my meets with me. He used to share his own stories as a swimmer with me as well. It was on this birthday that I received an old trophy as his that I won at a swimming competition, that he won at a swimming competition. The trophy was very old and rusty with a picture of him in a Speedo on top of it, and so it made everyone around the table laugh. But to me, I saw it as so much more. From someone who has such a hard time letting go of things, receiving something of his that would be kept thousands of miles away from him showed how much he cared about me. I mean, my dad could not get a bite of Pup-Up's burger without a loud New York heavy scream, but I, on the other hand, got to keep one of his beloved trophies in my room, shedding the love and true connection Pup-Up and I had. These are the memories I will cherish, the moments I will love, and the stories I will tell my future kids. Losing Pup-Up has been very hard for me. However, having these recollections certainly helped me think of the light that he shined on my cloudy days. I learned that the small conversations with the right people can really make someone's day. Thank you, Pub Up, for the lessons, for the laughs, for the dance parties, and for the love. May you rest in peace and dance with Mum. I love you forever and always.
So after listening to those eulogies, I have good news and bad news. For you, Larry. The good news is, Yasher Koach, right on, you survived being a temple president. So the bad news is, your son said that you had aliyahs on the holidays. So I hate to break it to you. The bad news is you've been bar mitzvahed. God gives opportunities for us to love and to live, but not forever. God takes away those opportunities after a while. So don't hesitate or delay or curse the darkness while remaining mired and stuck in sadness and hopelessness, because God gives, God takes away. Blessed be the holy name of God. You can ask me, why would we bless God's name when God takes away? Because if the opportunities were always there, we would wait until we thought the moment was just right. And we would never take the leap. More of life would simply slip away. So God gives, God takes. Blessed be God's holy name. And blessed be Larry Ross's life, because he did not wait. He took those opportunities. And may that indeed be his legacy that we all should strive for as Rosh Hashanah, our Jewish New Year, begins this evening. The 23rd Psalm. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai Eloi lo echsach, Benot Sheyar B'tzeni al Menuchot Yanaleini, Nafshi Yeshovev Yanacheni, V'maglet Tzedek L'ma'an Shemo, Kam ki elech b'geitz al mavet lo irara, ki ata imadi shiftecha mashantecha, hem yanachamuni. Ta'aroch l'vanai shulchan neged sorai, deshanta v'shem Eloshi kosi levaya. Ach tov achesed yildafuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti b'veit Adonai la'orech yamim. A song of David. The Eternal is my shepherd, I shall not want. God causes me to lie down in green pastures, leading me beside still waters, restoring my soul, guiding me through paths of righteousness for the sake of the divine holy name. Even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I ought fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod, your staff, they do comfort me. You set a table before me in the presence of my enemies and anoint my head with so much oil, my cup overflows with your bounty. Merely goodness and kindness pursue me throughout my life, that I may come to dwell inside the house of the Eternal forever. Our Levaya funeral service for Larry Ross concludes with the memorial prayer and the mourner's Kaddish. I invite everyone who is able to stand to please rise out of respect for life. El Malei Rachamim Shochein Mamromi המציא מנוחה נכונה על כנפי השכינה, ומעלות קדושים וטהרים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים. לנשמת לורנס רוס, שלח לעולמו בגן עדן, תהא מנוחתו לכן. בעל הרחמים יסתרע בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר Amen. God, full of compassion, who dwells on high, grant perfect rest on the wings of your divine presence in the lofty heights of the holy and pure, who shine forth as the brightness of the heavens, to the soul of Lawrence Ross, who has gone to his eternal rest. His resting place is now the Garden of Eden. Therefore, the Master of Compassion will care for him under the protection of divine wings for all time, binding his soul in the bond of everlasting life. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy Blessed One, is Larry's inheritance. He rests in peace. We, the living, should join together and say, Amen. Kaddish Yatom, mourners Kaddish. Yit Gadal, Yit Gadash, Shmer Rabam. Ba'alma Divra Chute, V'yamnit Mechute, B'chayachon, V'machon, V'chayid, Chol Beit Yisrael, B'glav Zman Kariv Yimru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba Mavarach, L'olam L'amei Almaya, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yomam, V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, V'yitalev, V'yitalav, Shmit V'yitashah, V'yithu, Le'ela, Min Kol B'yachata V'yishirata, Tush B'chata V'nechemata, Da'amiran Ba'alma V'yimu, Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shmayim, V'chayim, Aleinu, V'yal Kol Yisrael V'yimu, Amen. V'oseh Shalom B'imomav, V'yaseh Shalom, Aleinu, V'yal Kol Yisrael V'yimu, Amen. Place the shovel back because each of us has an independent obligation to participate in burying our dead.
here if you guys want.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the service for Mr. Ross. On behalf of the family and the staff at Saul Levinson, we appreciate your attendance here today. When you leave the cemetery, please drive home safely. Thank you.
We entered this space in peace. We performed our sacred task in peace, and now we take our leave in peace. Larry Ross, Zichron Livracha, may Larry's memory be for a blessing, and for everyone, as painful as this is at this moment, L'Shana Tova, the year to come should be a year of health and well-being, of peace and joy and growth for all of us, for all Israel, and for everyone on earth. And we should say amen.